Awesome. Hey, everyone. I was just about to type in. We'll get started here in just a moment. Perfect. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another awesome Hack the Box AMA. This is kind of an interesting spin on the interview series that we're doing. This is with one of our amazing members of our content development team. Today we have the one, the only Zayad, who is, this is his official title, our training development director, unofficially, but also, I guess, kind of officially between the lines. He is the head of academy, so all of the awesome content that you find on there, you can thank him for, well, him and his team. So heck yeah, let's go ahead and bring Zayad on. And Zayad, hey, welcome to the AMA. Could you tell the good people a little bit about yourself?
Hey everyone. I'm part of the academy team. My name is Ziyad Al Madani. I'm from a lovely small country called Bahrain. What I do at academy currently, I am the head of content on academy. I am responsible for any modules, exams, paths, and anything on the content side within academy. And I suppose, yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. I did not know you were from, it was Bahrain, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's really cool. No, that talk about a fun fact to get started with. Awesome. Well, thank you for telling the good people a little bit about yourself. As we get started, this AMA is all about our new certification, the CWEE. As we get started, could you tell us a little bit about that certification, kind of just what it's about, how would you describe it?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we introduced our first certificate at Hack the Box Academy, which was the Certified Bug Bounty Hunter Certificate, CBBH. And that certificate basically focused on the intermediate level of web pen testing, basically, and bug bounty hunting, which is, part of web pen testing. Now, in that certificate, we covered the vast majority of vulnerabilities. I would say up to 80% of the most common vulnerabilities that you would find. And for that reason, we think that it is enough for the vast majority of organizations and web pen testers who are looking to patch most of the important and easy to medium to find vulnerabilities, which would put you in a good level of protection. However, there are certain organizations like governments and banks and so on who need to be able to find and identify all kinds of vulnerabilities, not just the most common ones, but even the ones that you wouldn't normally find, and most people would not be able to identify them, which is why we created CWE. It is like the advanced level of web pen testing. It is the successor to CBBH, basically. Yeah.
Cool. No, thank you for describing it. I had never heard it described as the successor to the CBBH in that way, so that's really cool. No, real quick, you mentioned some of the exploits that this would cover. Would you mind just speaking briefly to some of the major exploits that are included in this course, like what it teaches you on?
Yeah, so in CBBH, we focused on vulnerabilities. So we would cover like the common vulnerabilities that you would know, XSS, command injection, SQL injection, and so on. We taught a list, or we covered a list of vulnerabilities that how to identify them, how to exploit them, and how to patch them. However, with CWEE, we did not go the vulnerability route. We do cover so many advanced vulnerabilities, but this was not the main target. The main target was to teach the skills and the concepts of how to identify those vulnerabilities in the first place. Whoever discovered XSS, what was he thinking basically, or what kind of skills did he have to be able to think that this is a vulnerability? So this was our focus. So throughout the various modules, you are learning the advanced vulnerabilities. So most of them are called advanced. For example, we have XSS and CBBH. Here we have advanced XSS. We have, for example, advanced deserialization, and so on. Most of the vulnerabilities are from the intermediate level and going to the advanced level. So through all of that, you are learning skills that not only allow you to identify those specific vulnerabilities, but also identify unknown vulnerabilities in the future that are even more advanced, perhaps. Yeah. So this was like our kind of thinking in creating the certificate.
That's great. No, I love hearing that emphasis on the how, not just, hey, okay, here's a bunch of vulnerabilities. Yay, we found them. No, it's teaching that skill set of, hey, this is how you need to think about it, how, what mindset you should be in these different things we want to poke at. So that is fantastic. One thing I wanted to mention for chat quickly, I do have a number of pre-submitted questions that we had from our Twitter poll. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. If they're awesome questions, I'll pull them up on screen and we'll ask them right away. And in fact, we actually had a awesome question asked right there by Simple Luis. So it's not entirely a successor, but an advanced CBBH. Would you say that holds true?
Somewhat. It is both. It is a successor to CBBH, and it is also an advanced CBBH. It is a successor because we highly recommend that you do CBBH before doing CWE. You can directly jump to CWE because there are certain people who are already advanced in web pen testing and would not like to go through the various modules within CBBH. However, we make it very clear that throughout the various modules of CWE, we expect you to know the knowledge in CBBH. So we don't repeat that knowledge. Otherwise, we would be wasting people's time who have already completed CBBH and who know this stuff. So we take it for granted that you know the stuff, and we build on it. So it is a successor to CBBH in that sense. But yeah, at the same time, it is everything in it is more advanced. You will not find like one or two modules that are easy just or medium. No, all of them are hard. Some of them are medium, but more difficult than the most difficult one in CBBH, and going to hard. And we also kind of, we recommend that you follow the order of modules within the path, the job role path within Academy, because they are. It took us like some time to think of the best order to put them in, which would make sense. For example, we go from the medium level all the way to the hardest ones. So the ones at the end are usually the most difficult ones. At the same time, we start with the black box pen testing modules, and in the middle there's a module called Intro to White Box Pen Testing that teaches you the concepts of white box pen testing and basically how we will go about doing white box pen testing. And all of the modules after that are also white box pen testing. So it is important to follow the order of modules in that sense.
No, that's great. I had two comments off of that. First and foremost, you're saying I needed to pay attention when taking the CBBH. What are you talking about? I thought that was supposed to go in one ear and out the other after the exam, right?
This is why even when creating CBBH and as well as all of our other certificates, we try to put the demos and exercises in a way that those skills would stick with you, even if you come back like 4 years ago. I don't really remember, but it would still be in your muscle memory. Basically, you would know this stuff. Other than, some other way of doing it is that you would just learn the vulnerability and like a tutorial or an annual tutorial, and then you will, at the time, you will learn it. You will be able to replicate it, but a couple of weeks from then, you forget everything about it. But if you understand the core concepts, then even after a while, you would remember them. So hopefully, you remember everything from CBBH.
Here's hoping. You actually started getting into another question that I had about white box and black box pen testing. And very quickly, I wanted to visit this. So CWE, does it cover both white box and black box? Is there really a focus there? How would you describe that balance? I know we briefly talked about that before.
Yeah, this was definitely a major focusing point for us when creating CWE. This was very intentional, and we thought about it from the very beginning. When you are talking about advanced vulnerabilities, Not all of them can be identified through black box pen testing. The vast majority, or all of CBBH, we did go into source code in a little bit, but in an easy manner. But all of it was black box pen testing. But when you go into advanced vulnerabilities, many of them are impossible to identify using just black box pen testing. And I mean literally impossible, because you would need specific knowledge from the source code that you otherwise would not be able to know. Like how to approach how to land in the specific code that is vulnerable. Maybe you need some kind of password or encryption code for deserialization, for example, that you would not be able to know without white box pen testing, and so on. So this was a major focus, and we knew that we did not want to just make 1 or 2 modules just to say that we did cover white box pen testing. No, we wanted to thoroughly teach white box pen testing. That's why half of the modules, 7 of them, are in white box pen testing. So first of all, like I said earlier, you learn into white box pen testing, you know the concept, how it's done. And in the same module, we also give like a very detailed demo of the process that we taught, which is the code injection, advanced code injection. So you learn the process of white box pen testing, and in the same module, you see it applied. But then there isn't like one way to go through source code, or one way to debug code, or there isn't even one language, right? You have to do so many languages. So that's why we use the 6 modules after that, teaching various ways and methods and techniques about white box pen testing. So you're not only learning what it is, you actually it's like you go through multiple exercises of white box pen testing as you would in a real life, and hopefully by the end you would be really good in white box pen testing.
Heck yeah. Now there were a couple awesome questions that we got from chat. I did want to jump on to, you mentioned that, so as we're going throughout these modules or the sections of the course, first you're teaching the concept of this command injection or this injection attack, and then you're teaching it in multiple different methods. Let me go ahead and pull up this question this is from Claudius. Is AppSec / bug bounty hunting on white box stuff just pattern recognition? Do you find that this becomes pattern recognition, or is there more to it? How would you describe what that teaching process ends up looking like?
No, I mean, it is part of it, but it's definitely not the major part. Pattern recognition is just a small part of how to identify vulnerabilities in the code, and that's what I meant. That's what I meant earlier when I said it's not enough to just give one example of white box pen testing. We need to give it through various different modules and to show different examples, because there isn't a single way of identifying source code. In the intro to white box pen testing module, there is in the first section we discuss the process, which contains 4 steps, and then there's a section about each step, and then there's the demo. The demo takes like 6 or 7 sections. So in the section about code review, we do mention what kind of techniques you can identify. For example, you can start from the front end of the web application, and you use the web application. You identify interesting functionalities like the file upload functionality, and then you try to find it in the code, and you test that. So this is one way of doing it, starting from the front end, going to the back end. You can do it in another way. You can use search to find, for example, eval functions. Just a small, easy example to understand. When you find eval usage within the code, this can be vulnerable, for example. Or you can find you can find like SQL queries, and then you would find any of them are using unfiltered. So there are various techniques, not just pattern recognition.
Heck yeah. No, thank you for diving into that. And I mean, it's so important to understand that it's about understanding what is happening there. It's what's happening in the code. Would you say that it really is that, understanding of the situation beyond just recognizing the pattern? I can rephrase that if you want me to.
No, I understand what you meant, because at the very beginning, you need to get access to the source code, which is from whoever you are doing the white box pen testing exercise from. And then they would provide you, hopefully, with a VM that you can test on, which is a replica of the production VM, a test VM. Now, this will go a long way in the white box pen testing. But in certain cases, this information is not given to you. So it becomes a little bit more difficult, but not impossible. For example, you would have to study the live production server, and then you would have to replicate it on your own. You would have to obtain the compiled code, and you would have to decompile it, and so on. Sometimes you are given access to the source code, but there are no comments, so it's very difficult to understand. But sometimes it is filled with comments. So there are so many things that can make this test easier for you or more difficult for you. And obviously, if it is more difficult, then it would take more time for you, and thus it will be more expensive for whoever is hiring you.
But what if I like making things more difficult on myself? What do you mean?
If everything is provided to you, there's a higher chance that you will be able to identify those vulnerabilities. If it is really difficult to understand the code, then people would probably miss vulnerabilities, and which may be identified by more skilled people or by hackers. And obviously this makes the company or whoever's owning the website not as secure as they should be.
I'd like to just return to the point, but you haven't answered my question. But what if I like making things harder on myself? What do you mean? You saying that I'm my own problem? Okay. Anyhow, let's go ahead and move on to another question. This is a user submitted question in chat from the Bird. I wanted to start getting into the topic of who this course and the exam are for. This question asked by the Bird reads, do you recommend doing some web development or touch on, working with Node, Express, maybe understanding these frameworks before jumping into this course? Or do you think you should just dive into Hack the Box? Is there some prep work you recommend beyond the CBBH?
Yeah, so in all of our certificates, we always try to make them comprehensive and self-sufficient, basically. So you do not need any other resource from any third party to be able to pass the exam. So you are definitely able to do the course and pass the exam using just the material within CWEE and CBBH and all of the other certificates. However, obviously, if you want to do more exercises, you can do things like attacking Hack the Box boxes in the main lab. And for CWEE, like as mentioned here, learning or having at least good knowledge in one programming language goes a long way, because you will be able to understand code. You do not need to be a software engineer, and you do not need to be even an expert developer, but you definitely need some background in programming, how web applications work, and not just basic one-page web applications. I'm talking about a full stack. And that's why in the very last module, which is the logic bugs module, we provide a large code base that is like a full, it is an Academy replica. It's a full Academy replica, and it works within a Docker container that you can download and go through. Now, this allows you the advantage of actually doing a white box exercise and secure coding exercise on something that will be very similar to what you would find in a real case. So now this is one part of it. The other part is that you will need to develop exploits. Some of them are quite advanced exploits. So without any zero programming language, you may struggle. You will learn, because we do cover that, but you will struggle. So yeah, we do suggest that you know a little bit about programming.
No, that's great. Thank you for covering that. I didn't realize that we had that replica of Academy in the container at the end. That's really cool. Is it kind of just a what was the motivation? Was it just a fun idea? Did you have any ideas when you were deciding what was going to be the end for that mini module or mini version of Academy? I can rephrase that question. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, so we wanted at least one of the modules to contain a large code base, and we do that with multiple modules, even the advanced deserialization. One of our modules, the advanced SQL injection, I think has a Twitter replica, X, I suppose now, but yeah. So it's we do have multiple modules that cover a large code base, and this is important because if all you learn is an application that is obviously vulnerable, it only has three pages or three files in the script, and it is easy to find the vulnerability, and then you go in a real life and you find an application with 1 million lines of code, it will be impossible to do. Now, at the same time, in a real life, nobody will ask you to do a million lines of code. They will usually ask you to do a specific functionality. But we even that functionality may be so many files, so many lines of code. So we created something that is similar in that size, that what you may find in a real exercise. Now, when it came to creating that application, we wanted students to focus on the code. We did not want them to spend so much time learning how to use this application, because learning how to use an application is basically just going through it and seeing how it works. And you can do it with any other application, like any internet user. So this is where the idea of Academy came. All of our students know how to use Academy. They are very familiar with Academy because they are doing the modules on Academy. So I thought, I will create a replica of the Academy. Now, creating the backend wasn't so difficult because obviously it's not compared to the real Academy, which has so many functionalities. We only needed the main ones. But the front end using React, that took most of the effort.
Now, real quick, I want to take just a short detour as the head and Lord of Academy, as it would be. Do you have a favorite module? Do you have a favorite child?
We
You
can't
can
pick
get
one.
multiple. I know it's probably hard to pick just one, right?
We can't pick one. I mean, you have to be more specific. I can pick my favorites among my own modules, the ones that I worked on. But I think all of the modules in CWE are amazing.
If you were to give, so for the folks that are in chat watching the stream, either now or after the fact on YouTube, if you were to give them one module that you recommend doing today, like to start off their weekend well, what would it be? Just if you could pick any module.
Obviously, it depends on their area. If they were interested in binary exploitation, I really recommend doing the intro to assembly module. Now, this module came out about a couple of years ago, but I think it is still very solid. If they want to learn secure coding, the logic box module that I mentioned. So it depends on the area and the level, but every area has because I cannot recommend an advanced module for someone who is But those two, at least from the modules that I worked on, I really enjoyed doing them, and they took a lot of effort.
So you do have favorite children. That's what I'm hearing. Oh gosh, no, you're good. I'm just giving you a hard time. Now we've talked a little bit about the course itself. I did want to touch on just one point quickly. Beginners. Someone that is a beginner in this area, do you think that the exam or the course and the exam are both doable for a beginner, or do you think that this is something that might be a bit of a challenge for someone that's newer in the field?
We definitely do not recommend beginners to start CWE. I know people, would want to say that, go ahead and do it. But no, if someone is a beginner, we strongly recommend doing CBBH before. And CBBH is designed in a way that anybody can start it. Even if you're just starting with pen testing, you're not really, you're just learning about curl and bash and what is bash. You can start CBBH because from the very first modules, intro to web applications and the web requests module, we cover the very basics. So if you are a beginner, you start with CBBH and you will be able to start. And by the end, you will be at the intermediate level, especially if you pass the certificate, CBBH. You would have tested yourself that you are good in all of the areas that were covered in CBBH. So at this level, you can start CWE. And it is exactly what it's designed for. Anybody who passed CBBH should definitely be able to start CWE.
Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. That's great to have that sort of on-ramp to know, hey, this is how you want to be attacking this course. Give yourself sort of a study plan. Is that something that on the note of study plans, is there any resource or anything that you recommend for someone that maybe wants to learn a lot about web in general and wants to put together kind of an overall course or their training plan, be it, CBBH and then CWE and maybe other modules? Is there a resource that you recommend, or are there just kind of a handful of modules, or maybe just those exams and courses to get started with? I can rephrase that if you want me to. I realize that question got a little long at the end.
No, but I got your point. And this is exactly why we designed CBBH and CWE. For anybody who wants to learn web pen testing, this is like the perfect way of doing it. So I recommend CBBH and then CWE.
Awesome.
Unless you're talking about external resources. Like I mentioned earlier that all of our certificates and all of our paths are designed to be, you don't need any external resources. So you don't need to go to do boxes. You don't need to do labs. You don't need to do other certificates. You can just start with those paths, and they should be enough to pass the exam. And the exam is very advanced. So when you pass it, you are able to pass a real pen test, a real whiteboard pen test. But since you only needed the information and the details that were within the labs, that means that everything within the lab actually prepares you for a real white box pen test. So this applies to the other paths as well.
No, that's good to know. Thank you. Had to think a moment what my next question was. I did want to speak briefly. So we've talked about taking this exam. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about the exam itself. The exam itself, could you tell us a little bit about what that looks like? Is it proctored? This is actually a question that comes from one of our users. This was a user submitted question from 5PKY0. I apologize. I don't want to butcher your name. So could you tell us a little bit about the exam?
Yeah, so obviously I cannot go into anything that is would be a spoiler, but I can mention the publicly available information.
Not even a little one?
No, unfortunately not. If you want a spoiler, I can say, drum roll, no, I can say that the CWEE modules prepare you well enough for the exam. So if you complete them, you should be able to pass. What was the question? Yeah, about the exam. So is it proctored?
Yeah.
Is it proctored?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry, I've cut you off.
We thought about this at the very beginning in Academy, even before creating CBBH or CPTS. We do not think that proctoring is the best way to prevent cheating and ensuring authenticity. I mean, imagine you are doing a web pen test or any kind of pen test, and there's someone standing on your shoulder just looking at your code and your keyboard. It would be almost impossible to focus. Now we understand that after a while you may forget about them, but I mean that's almost impossible even for a 7-day or a 10-day exam. We wanted the experience to be as close to a real pen test as possible. And in a real pen test, you are able to use any tool. You are able to use ChatGPT, and there's nobody on your shoulder that is looking at what you're doing. And at the same time, the main goal in a real pen test is to identify the vulnerabilities and securing the application. And in the exam, the same thing. The main goal is to identify those vulnerabilities yourself, obviously, and patching them eventually.
So the way you describe proctoring, you mentioned kind of on your shoulder. Is it kind of like an angel on one shoulder, devil on the other shoulder situation where the proctor's like, tempting you to do wrong? That's how you envision it, right?
I mean, if somebody is proctoring you, then yeah, that probably would be
yeah. No, I digress. Let's see. I wanted to briefly, I had this question come up right before we talked about the exam. I wanted to talk about after the course. Once you are done with the course, what kind of skill sets, what can you expect to do? Can I go out once I've taken this course in the exam, I have the certification, can I be expected to do good bug bounty work, good web app pen tests? What can I advertise in my resume?
Yeah, so whoever finishes CWE, and I'm sure anybody, maybe someone in the chat has completed CWE, I'm sure they would say the same thing. You
have a couple fans in chat. Yep.
Yeah, whoever finishes and passes CWE should be at an excellent level to identify all kinds of easy, medium, and difficult vulnerabilities. At the same time, web vulnerabilities, obviously. At the same time, they should be able to write exploits to automate their exploitation process, because certain kinds of vulnerabilities, it will take forever to exploit them manually. So you need to be able to write an exploit using a programming language of your choice to do that. So this is another skill you will have. Number 3, you are able to do advanced white box pen testing. So a company can give you a source code and potentially, hopefully, provide you access to a test server that is a replica of the real production server, and you should be able to take it and use those resources to find hard to find vulnerabilities that would not have been otherwise found using just black box. Perhaps in the past they did a basic web pen test without access to the source code. You will be able to find vulnerabilities that were not found before. Secure coding and white box pen testing, and there are so many other things. But one thing that I think stands out here is that I think whoever passed CWEE has the potential to identify 0 days in the future, web 0 days, because after a while, after doing the exam and starting, start doing advanced web pen testing, advanced white box pen testing, they would accumulate the knowledge and the skills to find unknown vulnerabilities. It's not like an SQL injection or deserialization, something that is not currently known. I think this is also a potential that hopefully this path prepares you towards.
No, thank you for walking through that. Thank you for highlighting as well the individual skills, just because that's something that it's so important as you're looking at these courses, and furthermore the exams itself. Just because that's ultimately the final boss of this. Is it worth it? What skill sets am I going to get on the other end of it? If you were a beginner and you were looking at planning out, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this question. Let's go ahead and skip that for now. I did want to bounce back to the course in the exam quickly. There was one question that I missed. Purchasing that. Can you buy the exam and the course at the same time? Is there a package that includes both? Can you buy them separately? How does that work?
Yeah, so there are several ways to obtain the exam. I had a talk a while back. It was about CWEE, and I had calculated then the different ways of obtaining CWEE. Let me just pull it up so I can go through it exactly.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you pulling up the fact sheet just to make sure we say the correct thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I've said incorrect things in the past, and I'd rather make sure that we get this correct.
Yeah, because it's all about numbers, right? So it needs calculation, and I have done that exercise before. So yeah, there.
Yeah, man, numbers. How do they work? What are you talking about?
Okay, so I'm not sure if I can share this screenshot somehow. Is there a way to share a screenshot? Anyway,
I don't know if there's a way to share the screenshot, but if you want to just read off of it or summarize it some way, go for it. Take your best stab at it. Yeah.
So the recommended way is using the gold annual subscription within Hack the Box Academy. Now, this gives you both an attempt for the exam as well as unlocks all of the modules within CWEE, the Senior Web Pen Tester path. Not only that, it unlocks all modules in Tier 0, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So you would actually unlock the vast majority of modules within Academy. So let's say doing the certificate takes you a couple of months, then you have the remaining time in the subscription to do all of the other modules within Academy and can even do other certifications. But this does give you a voucher for the advanced exam, which is CWEE. And this costs $1,260 a year, which is the cost for the gold annual subscription. The other way to obtain it is through cubes. Now, there are 15 modules within CWEE. All of them are Tier 3, so all of them cost 500 cubes. So this comes around at 7,500 cubes. But keep in mind that we always give back 20% of the cubes. So you would get back about 1,500 cubes. So you would need around 6,000 cubes, costing you about $610, plus purchasing the exam voucher. Now that's $350. So this comes out at $960. So the first is $1,250. This one is $960. There's like a $300 difference. And for the 300, you get the like I said, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 modules. Then there's the monthly platinum. Every month, you would get, if you take the platinum subscription, it would give you 1,000 cubes. And like I just mentioned, you need 6,000 of them, 6,100 or something. So this would come, if you take it for 6 months, this would come at about $408. And then, like I said, $350 for the exam. So this would come about $760. So it's about $200 less than the first option, the second option. So the first option, $1,260. The second, $960. The third, $760. And obviously, the third, you will only get the CWEE, the 15 modules, and you would need to wait for 6 months because every month you are unlocking a few modules. So there are various choices that you can take. You can unlock all modules and have the exam and have your freedom, and you can do whatever you want. And once you finish this one, you go and learn more. The second option, you can just unlock those modules, but you can get them immediately. You don't have to wait for 6 months. The sixth option is the cheapest, but it takes the longest.
Thank you for walking through that. I can see why you wanted to share a screenshot of it, with that being a little bit easier. But I do appreciate you walking through that, and thank you everyone in chat for bearing with us for a moment.
I mean, people can search on YouTube what is CWEE. It was part of the cyber apocalypse this year, and this slide is on that talk.
And just as a quick note on it, that slide, that talk is just great, especially if you want to know more about this. It's really, would you say it's fair to say that that's kind of more of a deep dive than what we're going through today?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today we are doing like a Q&A and what different questions people might have. But on that talk, I wanted to just focus on a few points that we want people to know before doing the path and before doing the exam. So I think I really recommend that talk for anybody starting CWE.
No, thank you for going through that. One moment, I wanted to make sure that I reminded everyone in chat. If you have any questions, I did see one from Gustavo that was answered by Malcolm. And by the way, thank you everyone in chat who's being helpful, helping others in chat. Y'all are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Y'all make my day being here. So thank you so much. That being said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat. I'm keeping an eye on chat. Always happy to ask your questions. I want to make sure that we get the people the information that they need. So, heck yeah. Ziad, over the things that we've covered so far, is there anything you wanted to jump back to talk about? I realize we've kind of been going a little all over the place. Was there any point that you wanted to revisit quickly? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I mean, earlier we talked about white box pen testing, and I mentioned why this is important, but perhaps I did not mention the difference between white box and black box pen testing, so I can go through that.
Thank you. If you don't mind, just discussing the difference in that and how that difference impacts the course and how we teach it.
Yeah, so black box pen testing is where you only have access to the application as the attacker. So anybody who is going to attack the application, they would have access to as a user. They may have an admin if we are testing for admin exploitation. For example, is the admin in this web application able to exploit it if they had admin access? But in general cases, you only have low level access and you don't have anything else. Now, how do you identify vulnerabilities? Obviously, through CBBH, all of the vulnerabilities were covered this way. There are ways to fuzz the application. There are ways to test for example, if there's a file upload vulnerability, file upload functionality, you can test for file upload vulnerabilities and so on. But at the same time, we do cover various other techniques, advanced techniques that are black box only, and that can lead basically to finding those advanced vulnerabilities. But as I mentioned earlier, there are vulnerabilities that can only be found using white box pen testing. So that's why we created our own white box pen testing process, which is unique to Hack the Box. And the reason we created this process is we want people to learn white box pen testing and to easily remember it in the future. We also wanted to teach a process that they can refer to when they are asked to do a white box pen test. Perhaps in other courses and so on, you would learn white box pen testing, but you don't really learn how to go through source code, how to do code review. I mean, you are taught how to find the vulnerability. You are given an example, but how can I do it in a different scenario? Mm-hmm. So that's why we created this process. And this process basically consists of 4 steps. Number 1, code reviews. Number 2, local testing. You are testing the application locally to see if whatever low-hanging fruits or whatever interesting functions you found are vulnerable. Then you are writing the exploit if you identify a vulnerability. And finally, you do the patching and remediation step. So I think this is something very unique to CWE, that we created our own process for white box testing, and we followed it through 7 different modules, not just a single module.
Apologies, I was getting distracted there for a moment. We have so many awesome questions coming in chat. I don't know if you've noticed the whole, I mentioned, hey, chat, if you guys want to ask some awesome questions, chat, you're blowing us away over here. I have more questions now that I can pick from, and this is great. Let's see. Let's jump back up to this question. This is from Alexandros. This question reads, what happens if you started on the path, for example, the bug bounty path, maybe you don't finish that and you want to move on to working on this exam? Is there any penalty? How does that work if you wanted to change gears?
So there are different things that can be answered here. If the question is about if you have an annual subscription and you start a module and then you don't complete it, can you get back to it? So if you have an annual subscription, obviously you can unlock like 100 modules or whatever, but only the modules that you have completed will remain owned by you after the subscription runs out. Obviously, many other competitors, they have a subscription, and after the subscription runs out, you lose access. And this is the way with everything, right? Once the subscription runs out, you lose access. But for us, If you completed a module, you retain access to it. And so many times, for example, last week we rewrote an entire module, and we do this very often. So we have a module, we rewrite it entirely, we make it much better, and you will get this update completely free of charge. Even though you unlocked it on a subscription like a couple of years back, you still retain access to it. Now, this is one point in the question. Another point is that if you are doing a path like a CWEE path or CPTS path and so on, obviously you can stop midway. You don't have to do it in one go. But to start the exam, you have to finish the entire path. You cannot start the exam without finishing the entire path. And this is something that we thought long and hard about. And this is something that it is, I think, unique to Hack the Box Academy, and we really believe in it. So it's not something that we made on a whim, or we didn't make that decision easily.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate hearing that. It's nice to hear the gravity and, the care that's put into these decisions, especially when, many folks in the community, they might not see what's going on behind the scenes like we would do or see within the company, rather. I did have another awesome question in chat. This one is from, I'm just going to pronounce your last name because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to butcher your first name. Academy is really straightforward. This question is asking, is it okay to keep focusing on Academy if you're not confident enough to take on the main platform? Do you think that Academy is a good place to really spend a lot of time?
Yeah, this is definitely...
I'm asking... Oh, go ahead.
No,
sorry, I was asking the Academy director this, or the head of Academy this. So I kind of know the answer, but yeah, go for it.
I mean, this was the goal behind Academy, right? So in the main platform, you can practice whatever you learned, right? Mm-hmm. But you need somewhere to learn, and Academy is where you learn. Academy is a guided mode. So we teach you how the vulnerabilities work, and then we show you an example to reinforce this knowledge that you gained. Those with annual subscriptions can even unlock solutions, very detailed solutions and walkthroughs for the exercises. If they are beginners and they don't know how to solve a specific exercise, even if it's easy, there are solutions and walkthroughs. So it is definitely a guided mode, but it is designed very intentionally in a way that improves your skills and in a way that you would retain those skills. And the modules, like I keep saying, the modules and the paths are enough to pass the exam. But if you want extra ways to practice, if you want to test your knowledge, you completed the entire path, you want to practice more. This is exactly what the main platform is there for. In addition to that, there's the whole gamification aspect of it. You are an advanced pen tester, or you are very good at pen testing, very good at web pen testing, but you want to keep learning, and at the same time you want to keep playing. And this is the main platform as well. You get to compete against others. You get to test your skills. You get to gain points and so on. So both platforms play off each other and complement each other.
No, that's great to know. Thank you for talking through that in detail, especially as so many members of the community, it can be a confidence issue with, when to take on that main platform. Maybe let's take a quick detour. Just, I realize that we're talking about the difference between Academy and the main platform. Could you speak quickly on when you recommend taking on the main platform? I realize it's a bit of a departure from what we're covering here, but there's so much web content on the main platform. Do you think that this certification gets you to the point where you're ready to take on that web content?
Yeah, so in each, let's say somebody starts with Academy. In each module, we do recommend challenges and boxes, and also labs within the main platform. So they can always try those that are recommended. At the same time, if they want to compete in the leaderboard, let's say the active machines, the 20 active machines. Now, if you want to compete, you have to complete all of them. And completing all of the live machines will give you in the guru and above stages. Now, for this level, you have to be very advanced. You have to have the knowledge at the level of CWE and CPTS and even more advanced stuff. Perhaps you can see some of our most recent modules are even more advanced than CPTS. So you have to have this level of knowledge and other areas. But you do not necessarily need to complete all of them. You can, for example, start doing some of the CPTS modules and then test the easier ones. You should definitely be able to do those. Then after a while, if you complete CPTS, you should not only be able to do the easy ones, but even the easy and the medium ones, and some of the hard ones. The target is easy, the medium. So once you finish CPTS, I'm saying CPTS because CPTS is general pen testing, right? And boxes in general are not just web or not just Active Directory. So they are usually start with a starting point and then root and so on. So CPTS, if you complete it, yeah, you should be able to compete. You should be able to do easy boxes, medium boxes, and you should be able to finish 2 of the labs, of the pro labs.
Thank you for talking through that, especially when it's such a big barrier for many users. I appreciate you taking the time just to talk through that, talk through sort of the fear factor there, and how really that transition, it doesn't have to be difficult. It can be, you really know your skill level after taking this course, and it really makes that transition a lot easier.
I remember when I was doing Hack the Box boxes and competing there. That was, I don't know, like 7 years ago or 6 years ago, a while back.
Something like that.
Yeah. So back then there was no academy. So all you can do is watch EPSEC videos or read walkthroughs and solutions for boxes, and hope that you can replicate that with the retired machines. Obviously, the solutions are only available for retired machines. So you start with an easy box, and then you see the solution, you try to replicate it. Maybe you can't even replicate it step by step, so you would struggle. And this way you would start learning. But there was no one explaining to you exactly how SQL injections work. You just know that, okay, here I would add a semicolon, or I would add a single quote, and then I would be able to use this payload. But how exactly does everything affect the source code, and how? Nobody was telling you that. So when we created Academy, it was exactly for this reason. So when you learn SQL injections, we're not just giving you an exercise and a demo and saying use this payload and you will be able to. No, we are going back and teaching the basics and the concepts behind SQL injections. So you build a more comprehensive level of knowledge. So in the future, when you want to learn more advanced SQL injections, you have the necessary building blocks to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important. Again, we've talked about that how aspect, and understanding, the why, the what's happening behind the scenes. Thank you for talking through that. We did have another awesome question. This is one that I don't know if we'll be able to talk about this, but we had Malicio asked, "Hey, I have a question. When are we going to see the next senior certification? So the next higher level certification from Hack the Box. Could you give us a teaser if possible? I don't know if there's anything you can say right now. Can you hint at what our next cert is?"
I cannot reveal anything, but what I can say is that we always say CWEE is our first advanced certificate, our senior level certificate. Since it is first, so there is a second and follow up. Number 2, just take a look at our most recently released modules. Try to see what they have in common. Maybe you'll find.
Trying to say read between the lines. Is that what you're hitting at?
Yeah, and hopefully soon there will be something to announce.
Okay. So I'll let our hackers in chat do some sleuthing. I'll let you guys get that all figured out. Let's see. We have another question that's kind of along the same lines. Will there be a new challenge after CWE? Do you see any new big web challenges coming out soon? Anything that you're looking forward to on the horizon? I realize this might be kind of a difficult one to speak to.
So web only? No. We designed CWE to be the only advanced certificate we have, advanced web certificate. So there is no need for a more advanced web certificate, because when we designed CWE, we ended, like I said earlier, in a way that you will have those skills that you can just carry yourself on and learn and identify the more advanced vulnerabilities on your own. You don't need us anymore. So that's why there will be there won't be a more advanced web certificate as far as planned.
No, thank you for speaking to that. Hey, we can always try. Chat's we got to ask our questions where we can. Got to get our spoilers in. Let's see. Taking a look back at the exam, I wanted to get back to some of our user submitted questions here. We talked about the exam itself. first and foremost, I believe that we spoke to this very briefly. Can you purchase this just the exam alone, additional exam attempts? Is that something you can purchase, or is that something that you have to buy through some sort of other package? How does that work out for buying, getting access to the exam?
So I mentioned earlier 3 ways to purchase the package. The first way is annual subscription. You get both, but in the second 2 ways, you have to buy the exam voucher. So we do have an exam voucher, and for CWE, it costs $350. However, you have to keep in mind that you are only allowed to take the exam once you complete all modules within the path. And like I said earlier, maybe I can speak to that in a bit. But this was a very, it's a very, it's a clear decision that we made. We did not make this decision on a whim. Yeah, you have to complete the paths and the entire module, and then you can start the exam.
No, thank you for speaking to that. About the exam as well, we had another question. This comes from Payload Bunny. Is there a report template available for the exam? Do you need to create a report as part of the exam?
Yeah, definitely. You need an advanced report, and the report in CWEE requires more knowledge about reporting, and we take it more seriously. Not just more seriously. I mean, there's less room for error in CWEE than CPTS and CBBH and CDSA. For this reason, the report is required to be submitted as Markdown. So there is a Markdown template, and just to make it a little bit easier for you, we have added comments within the Markdown file to add this and that here, add this and that here. So this makes it a little bit easier for you, and you can just follow this template and while you are doing the exam. But a word of suggestion: make sure to put some time to write the report and make it as detailed as possible. Do not miss on any steps. Do not miss on any details that you want to explain, because we had so many people who are really good. I'm talking really good, who passed the exam, but they failed the report and they have to submit another report. Now, on their second submission, the report was excellent and it allowed them to pass. But yeah, basically just put extra attention on writing the report.
No, thank you for speaking to that as well. I mean, reporting, that's when you were working on this course, was there a conversation had about reporting versus not reporting? Could you speak to kind of why that report is included in the exam?
So why are we doing pen testing in general? The main reason is to identify vulnerabilities and be able to patch them and prevent them. So we are not teaching pen testing to attack others, right? We are teaching pen testing to protect others. So how would you, once you are an advanced pen tester and you have knowledge that the company who hired you does not have, that's why they hired you and that's why they are paying you, right? So how would you be able to tell them what kind of vulnerabilities you found? You need to write a report, and the more advanced the vulnerabilities are, the more advanced the report needs to be. So yeah, writing a report is absolutely essential. Otherwise, just identifying the vulnerabilities and telling them that, yeah, there are vulnerabilities, this is not good enough. It's for them. They are doing the entire exercise and they are paying you just for this report. This is the end result, and this is the only thing that they would get. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're saying that I need to show my work. You're saying that I need to actually produce a report to show what I did. What do you mean? What are you talking about? I don't know. I kind of like to go into environments and just hand wave and say, yeah, I found all these vulnerabilities, right?
Did my job. Good luck. So we do cover, actually, we have a module about writing reports. And then if you do CPTS or CBBH, we give you a lot of notes on writing a better report, even if you passed. So you would know what you did right and what you need to improve. So by the time you get to CWEE and any other advanced certifications, you should have the necessary knowledge to write a good report. So we're not just asking you to write an advanced report without telling you how to do it. No, we are starting with the module, and then we are giving you notes on an actual report that you wrote, and then you are required to write an advanced report. And even on that one, we would give you feedback. So hopefully,
go ahead.
Hopefully by the time you start doing real exercises, you would not just wave your hands.
So you're saying it'd be a bad idea to submit a report that says I did my job here. Good luck.
I did my best. You would not pass.
Well, I mean, hey, it's always worth a shot, you right?
wasting
let's
wasting an exam attempt.
That's true. Okay, so there are consequences to that. I mean, is it worth it for the joke? That's a tough one there. We've had a number of questions about programming come up, and this is something we spoke to just briefly. Let me go ahead. I'll pull up this question. This one comes from Steven. What level of programming is needed? I guess let's rephrase this. What kinds of programming languages are covered throughout the course? You don't have to necessarily list them by any means, just however you want to describe it.
No, it's okay. So in general, the web vulnerabilities, the concepts would be the same regardless of the programming language. So if you find an SQL injection vulnerability, the same concept about the injection can be found in Node or PHP and JavaScript and so on. So at the same time, we did want to cover the most common web programming frameworks and languages, because we wanted to prepare you for a real exercise. When you go to a real exercise, you don't know what kind of language you will face. So we took a shot at covering the best and most common frameworks and languages. So we do cover PHP almost entirely. In CBBH we cover PHP. I think we also cover JavaScript, but mostly it was PHP. But in CWE we cover PHP, we cover JavaScript, we cover C#. We also have Java. So, and all of those are in large code bases. So it's not small one. Like I said, we have Academy Replica, we have a Twitter Replica, and it's the entire source code. So it's not just a small application like CVBH. And yeah, in a real exercise, you may face other languages, but now that you have tested yourself in those 4 languages, you know how to read the code regardless of the language, and how to identify this vulnerability regardless of the language. Yeah. So that was the goal. I think you're silenced, muted.
Yeah. I did mute myself. Thank you. I muted myself to cough. Thank you for speaking to that, especially when programming can be such a barrier for folks that it can feel like before taking these courses, you just need to have some sort of programming language, some substantial experience. And that's not necessarily the case. It's how would you describe that level of familiarity again? Just kind of like, do you really need to know just how to read code in general?
Yeah, this is the main thing. You need not just read like a code of a function, but go through a code base, understand how different files link to each other, understand the entry point. You are able to find a function in the front end and find how to identify it in the back end. So it's reading the entire code base, or understanding the code base, and not just understanding a single function. This is obviously part of it. You need to go through a function and understand what it does. But it's not just that. You need to understand the entire code base. But we do teach that. We do cover all of that within the course itself. Having extra programming language, programming experience is definitely a plus. But at the same time, if you don't, go take it slowly. And at the same time, if you see an area you can improve, then you can do that as well. Yeah.
No, thank you for walking through that as well. I mean, it's so important to give yourself that time to learn throughout all this. Let me go ahead and pull up. We had another awesome question in here, and I did want to mention, I love your username here, Spectral Maniac. You mentioned the CBBH, yeah, fun username, right? You mentioned the CBBH path earlier, and that it can be a good starting point for getting into pen testing. Would you recommend the bug bounty hunting certification or course as a good way to get into bug bounty hunting, or to be able to start attempting that, being part of these programs?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to get into web pen testing and bug bounty hunting, then CBBH was one of the goals in designing CBBH. That's why it has the name bug bounty, the certificate name. So yeah, if you want to get into bug bounty hunting, then that's definitely the case. If you go to bug bounty hunting and you find it very challenging, whenever you find a vulnerability, they tell you it's a replica, then try CWEE, because those vulnerabilities are hard to find, and there's less chance that others would have found them before you.
No, thank you for detailing that as well. Let me go ahead. Apologies, I was reading an awesome question that we had here. This one comes from Some Park. This is going back to the exam. Does the exam challenge students on aspects like creativity and out of the box thinking, or is it more of a traditional approach? And they've described that as knowledge dumping. So is it more what you're doing versus memorization? Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. It needs, it's not knowledge dump, like you said. It definitely needs out of the box thinking. And all of our exams do that. So if you have done CBBH, CPTS, then you would understand what we mean. It's not enough to learn, for example, an exercise within one of the modules, and then you would find the exact same exercise. No, that is definitely not the case. Even for CBBH, you need to be able to chain multiple vulnerabilities. You need to be able to understand something from one module and then apply it in with a different vulnerability. For example, if you learned a certain bypass, but it was taught for command injection, but here you need to use it for SQL injections. So you need to be able to do all of that. And this, I'm talking about CBBH. So for CWEE, it's even more. When we created the exam, any exam, whenever we create it, it's always with the goal to test the skills that were covered in the path. And this is exactly what the exam does. Do you have those skills? It's not about can you solve this exercise, or did you complete this? Because we already know that you completed the module. We already know that you completed the skills assessment and the exercises. So here we are testing your skills and your understanding of whatever was covered. If you have completed the entire path, but you have not had a really good understanding of everything, you would not pass the exam. If you completed the entire path and you think you understand everything, then you can try the exam and you will pass if you do.
Thank you for speaking to that as well. Yeah, no, great question there, Some Park, as well, just because so many exams, it's very important, that application aspect and making sure that that's actually something that is considered. Looks like we had one more awesome question. This is a fun one from Top Crane. Very fun name. I jumped straight into the CWE without taking the CPTS or CBBH. Am I doomed?
It depends on you. So are you struggling with the modules? If you're not, then you had the necessary knowledge to do those modules. So when we say CBBH is required, it's required for the modules, not for the exam. The exam is covered by the CWEE modules. So if you think you are understanding everything well enough, so maybe you had the necessary knowledge and you don't need to do CBBH. Maybe you are one of the people for whom we did not mandate CBBH, right? So, because we know there are advanced pen testers who do not want to do CBBH because they know this stuff and they want to start CWE. So in this case, yeah, if you are not struggling with the modules, you should be good. If whenever you start a module, even the earlier ones, which should be easier than the latter ones, and you are really struggling, then I may suggest doing some or all of the CBBH modules and coming back to that, to CWE.
Here, let me go ahead. We'll move on. The next question that I have is very similar to that. Is it possible to pass the CWE without scripting? DV scripting is something that you need to be comfortable with in this course.
Yeah, you cannot pass CWE without scripting. It is definitely a major part of the exam. And so in CBBH, we review your report. In CWE, we also test your exploits to ensure that they are working. So you not only have to provide us with an exploit that you wrote, so obviously scripting, but you need to have written it in a way that we can use it as well. Because some people, they do CWE and they pass us their script, but it was completely designed for their own network. It is almost impossible to modify it to have it work on any other network. And the reason we do that is because in a real pen test, you would need to provide those scripts to whoever hired you, right? And they need to be able to run those scripts as a POC. Maybe they would patch the vulnerability, they would run the POC again to see if it's patched. So if it only works on your network or on your own PC, then what's the point? So you need to be able to script, and you need to be able to do it in a way that we can rerun them. Having said that, all of our white box pen testing modules teach you exploit development. Some of them in a more advanced way than others, and they go into more details, like the intro to white box pen testing. So you should be able to learn how to do it. So don't fear that aspect.
No, thank you for answering that question. And great question, Francis. Just because scripting is something, it's such a big obstacle for many people.
Yeah.
Looks like we're about out of questions in chat. Thank you, by the way, chat, for all the awesome questions. I did want to jump to, we had one question from, I'm trying to find who it was from. I think it's JRax here. Looking at the certification itself, why should I take this certification? What makes it stand out? If I'm looking at trying to find a web certification that's going to take me to where the skill set that I need to have to be a web app pen tester, why should I choose this certification amongst others?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier several things that we think make CWE stand out among the competition. Now, one thing is the fact that we have a really big focus on white box pen testing, which we think is absolutely necessary for advanced web for finding advanced web vulnerabilities. Number two, in this white box pen testing, we teach a unique process that is, it's unique to Hack the Box Academy. So you not only learn how to do white box pen testing, you learn a new process on how to do that. Number three, we focus on, I think what makes us stand out is that we don't just focus on vulnerabilities. We don't tell you that here are 5 advanced vulnerabilities, and we will teach you how to be able to exploit them, basically, and identify them. We don't do that. We focus on the skills, which we think is the right way to go for advanced vulnerabilities. So you learn the skills that allow you to identify other types of vulnerabilities. So this is something very important. Number 3, we think CWEE is comprehensive. It covers everything that we think is necessary for advanced web pen testing. And at the same time, you don't need third-party resources. So you just pay for this one and you have everything you want. There are other reasons. If you go to the CWEE page within Hack the Box Academy, we mentioned so many other things that make CWEE stand out, but these are basically the main ones.
No, thank you for covering those as well. I'm trying to find a question in chat. Claudius, if you wanted to re-ask that question, I am having trouble finding the one that you're referring to there. There we go. Is it, let me go ahead and pull this up. Thank you, Claudius. Is it good practice to reverse engineer CVEs to discover how you could have discovered the exploit yourself? Do you find that this is a good practice when you're looking to take this course? Do you think that that's a valuable skill set? Thank you, Claudius. I actually had that question started and had it get away from me. So,
yeah, excellent question. I think that definitely would go a long way in improving your skills. And you can do that as you are doing CWEE, but even better, you do it after you complete CWEE, because you would have learned those vulnerabilities and you have those skills, so you can understand when you reverse engineer reverse engineer a CVE or a CWE, because CWEE, right? So if you reverse engineer one of those, then you would have the skills to really understand how they did it. And if you are missing a single part in your skill domain, then this would add to it. And as you do more of those, you would really stand out among the competition, if it's bug bounty hunting or anything else.
absolutely. I mean, and that extra effort, it can't be underestimated how much value you get from that. Just that little bit of stand out above the crowd.
Yeah, it may be difficult for beginners. That's why it's difficult to do for CBBH, unless it's a basic CVE. But once you complete CWEE, then you can definitely do it for the vast majority of web CVEs.
Here, one moment. Let me go ahead. I'm pulling up. So we have another awesome question here. A great question here, rather, from Steven that I want to rephrase a little bit. Taking this certification, if this is the one certification on my resume, do you feel that I can be confident applying for web pen tester roles with this certification? Do you believe that this certification really holds weight in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So we created this based on our own experience, and obviously not just the CWEE team, but the entire Hack the Box. So we built on that experience to know what a manager would want, what kind of exercises you will be required to do. And we try to cover all of that within CWEE. So in terms of skills, we absolutely think that you will be able to do any job that is required from you, even if it's advanced web pen testing. Now, having said that, we are aware that CWEE is not very common in the field yet. But as we are seeing with CBBH and CPTS, they are becoming more and more popular, and so many people who do them, they realize that they stand out in the field, and once they have done them, they know that anybody who also possesses those certificates is probably really good. And we think as time goes, they are new certificates. As time goes, they will become more popular and more people would know them. And hopefully in the future, you will see them stand out among the competition. We have already seen what's it called? It's the matrix, the competition matrix, and we see Hack the Box right at the top in terms of innovation and in terms of basically the skills that you learn. What it is lacking in the certification is a little bit in recognition, because they are new, and this is completely expected. But as you complete it will be like at the very top in terms of recognition and as well as skills learned.
Thank you for speaking to that in such depth as well, just because I know that that's a concern for a lot of folks taking a newer certification. No, thank you for speaking to that. It looks like I'm about out of questions from chat. Thank you, chat, so much for all the awesome questions. And we've gone through all of our user submitted questions as well, which is great. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions with that. You were the best. I really appreciate you guys submitting questions. I did want to have, there was one last thing I wanted to end off on. For folks that are in chat, or that are watching this after the fact, if you could give them one piece of advice when considering this course, what would it be? And I realize I'm putting you on the spot again.
Yeah, so it depends whether they are they have started doing CWE or they are interested. So if they are interested, you would try to obviously, if you have completed CBBH, then you are good to start. If you have not, then we really strongly recommend that you go through the CBBH syllabus and read the sections and the details of every single module to see if you miss anything. If you think you are good with most modules, but maybe there is one or two, then you can just unlock those modules and do them. But once you are good with the entire CBBH modules, then you can start this path. That's number one. Number two, you need to have some programming experience. Now, throughout CBBH, you will learn this a little bit, but yeah, just make sure that you are able to read a little bit of source code. We're not talking major or large code bases, but you are able to read source code in any language and understand what it does. And at the same time, you are able to write basic exploitation scripts, because throughout the course, you will learn how to read more advanced and larger code bases, and you will learn to develop more advanced exploitation scripts. But you need at least something to build on. So maybe, yeah, those two things. Once you have those two things, then I think you can start doing the path, and you should do really well.
So you're saying that after I take this course, I can show up, not turn in a report and just say, yeah, I did my job. Good luck.
You can, but you will not.
There we go. Quality advice. There we go. Right at the end. Thank you so much for speaking to that and for all the awesome insight and advice that you provided. Especially, we've had some really fun questions from chat. Awesome. I
Thanks,
think
everyone.
yeah. Do you have anything to say to the people before we wrap up?
No, thanks for joining, and thanks for all the really good questions. Some of them were like really insightful, and they had us talk about something that we did not like intend to. But yeah, it's really good to get this information out. And if you have any other questions, always reach out on Discord, on YouTube, and we'll be there to answer those questions. And we also do weekly Cube Talks on Discord every Friday. So if you think of a question after the fact, you can just join a Cube Talk and ask us, and I'll be there to answer as well.
Heck yeah. No Cube Topics today. I flattened it with this event. We win with the AMAs. So, well, when the AMAs are scheduled, that is. Anyhow, I digress. Thank you so much, Zayad, for being on this AMA. You were wonderful. Always so insightful with speaking to you. So I really appreciate it. For everyone in chat, be sure to go check out Zayad's talk from Cyber Apocalypse. That is on our YouTube channel. I'll try to grab the link and put it in chat here in just a little bit to the talk itself. Otherwise, I'll link the certification here in just a little bit. I thank you to all the awesome questions. If I missed your question, please ask it in the Discord. We'll make sure we get to you. And otherwise, I think that about does it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And until next time, Words. Oh my goodness. Until next time, happy hacking. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.